I said no, hey, yeah.
Hi, this is Matt Gressick, bringing you another episode of Brick and Mortar with my illustrious co-host.
Hi, everybody. I'm Eric Ebersole. This is Education from the Inside Out, where we bring you people who have been inside school buildings to give you a perspective on one or more particular issues.
And this guest, Eric knows, we might say intimately.
Yes. Yes.
So,
You take that for what you like, but actually go as far as you want. You're probably right. So yes, we're happy to have with us today my lovely partner, Tara Ebersole, Dr. Tara Ebersole, who has been a teacher for quite a number of years at many levels, what we would call junior high in the day, but middle school and high school, and also at the college level. She's a professor, and so
brilliant, might add.
Yeah, well, it's intimidating, but I do the best I can. And we're happy to have her here today. We have her here for a particular reason, and we'll get into what it is and what the issue is that she's going to talk about. But first, Tara, welcome.
Thank you. I'm really honored to be here.
Well, it's great to have you. It really is. Tell us a little bit about yourself and why you chose to be an educator.
Well, I think I had some natural ability in teaching. I learned early on when I was teaching at a YMCA years before I ever went to college. The question wasn't really whether I wanted to teach, it was which subject. I actually graduated with a degree in psychology and hadn't considered teaching while I was at college, and then decided to go back. I sent my transcripts to MSDE, and they told me if I wanted to be a social studies teacher, I needed about 12 additional courses. If I wanted to be an art teacher, I would need an additional maybe 8 courses. And if I wanted to be a biology teacher, I only needed about 3 courses, and I became a biology teacher.
Path of least resistance is always nice.
Exactly.
Nice.
Yes, that's a great story.
I'll handle the next question. What's your most difficult, challenging, funniest, or most rewarding moment? In other words, what event sticks out in your memory the most? It's story time, Tara. If it can include an embarrassing story about the good delegate, even better. For bonus points.
We have editing skills.
Well, I'm actually going to go all the way back to my first year of teaching. I started off in the public schools before I went to the community college, and my first year was in a school in East Tennessee, and Clinton Junior High School, and I had was expected to deliver corporal punishment based on specific behaviors that the students showed. And I did not want to hit the children. So I was finding all other ways to deal with behavioral issues. I had policies.
Maybe effective in good ways.
Yes, I had very good, effective ways. But there were some school rules. And one of them was that if a student came late, they had to get what was called at the time 1 lick. Actually, the students themselves made my paddle for me. They went into wood shop and made sure I got a really nice, thin, smooth paddle to really hurt. But I wasn't using it. And I had a student, I'm going to call her Lisa, that is not her real name.
No duck sound necessary.
No editing
no
required.
Anyway, one day she stood outside the classroom when the bell was ringing, and I was sort of saying, Lisa, you have to get in the classroom. You know what I have to do if you don't come in. And she just kind of looked at me and said, you got to do what you got to do, and I got to do what I got to do. So she stood outside, and I had no choice. And I went across the hall and got a witness and to come out and observe. We had to have another teacher present when we hit a child. She had to put her hands on the locker and lean forward while I hit her. And
Jesus. I know. What a vision. What a vision.
I shook.
A 12-year-old leaning against the locker
Yes.
with her rear end sticking out.
Yeah, it was, for me, it was horrible. But anyway, I did hit her. I was shaking so badly, I'm not even sure I got the target. But when it was over, and the class was over, she went back in the classroom. Everything went back to normal after that. And then as she was leaving, she came back to me to tell me, you didn't hurt me none, but I'm going to tell the boys in the class that you hurt me real bad, and they'll be good for you from now on. And so basically what Lisa had done was thrown herself on the sword for my sake. She had stood outside the classroom so that I would hit her, so that I wouldn't have to hit anybody else.
Aren't children good?
Just well, you're not in education anymore, Eric. And
right.
like
everything has changed in the last 9 years.
Around winter break, it's beginning a little.
Yeah, I remember the week before.
But
the holiday.
Even with I'm sure after that, traumatic experience, you were probably like able to immediately go back to teaching the lesson and
without even thinking.
Yeah, without even thinking about it, right?
The inside's shaking, but you don't let that.
Oh my God,
that's amazing. All right, so one of the things that you're doing is you're completed, but you're still working on a novel.
Yes.
And it has to do with this experience. It's not autobiographical, but it is based on the experiences. And specifically, there's some things in there about corporal punishment. So do you want to tell us a little bit why you decided to write the book and what your experiences are that you feel like this book was motivating this book?
Yeah, so I think we all want to make a difference. Teaching is about making a difference. It has a lot of direct impact. And when I retired, I was trying to find the right place for me. And I thought maybe writing novels. If we write stories, the one thing that has been a way for people to communicate over the millennia has been our stories. So I thought if I could put some issues in story form, but make it fictional, that maybe we could find compassion and some common ground to have discussion. So that was really my goal. And then I chose this issue in particular because I had just read that a jurisdiction in Missouri had just reinstated corporal punishment, and I felt we were moving in the wrong direction. So I wanted to write about it, and I had other experiences with it besides Lisa. I had a situation where there were some boys who were at the end of 8th grade, now becoming young men, who, and of course you have to remember this was 40 years ago when I was a very young teacher, who wanted me.
You're still very attractive. Just want to say.
Thank you, love. Thank you, strange man. Anyway, they wanted me to paddle them for sexual pleasure, and I had to find a way out of it. And I ended up, when one of the boys came in late, I took him out into the hallway and brought a witness out who was a male, and I just handed him the paddle and said, I've hurt my wrist. I can't do it. I'm going to ask you to do it. And that put an end to it. But I think what really upset me was that I was ever placed in that position in the first place.
Yeah, and there's definitely also like seeds of sexism there.
Yes.
And like and that whole idea, well, I'm going to make you paddle me.
Yes.
Right. And it's I'm just sorry that just like if you're going through this right now, there's teachers across the country listen to this podcast. If you're going through this right now, that sucks.
And we talk about how corporal punishment will traumatize a child, but you're talking about your own trauma.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that's relevant.
Yes.
I mean, it makes you not as effective as an educator, as Matt pointed out. That after these experiences, you had a much more difficult time, I'm sure.
I think, too, what has stood out to me about corporal punishment is when I started reading about it, I discovered that not only is it still legal at the time I was writing, it was 19 states. I think we've reduced that now to 17 states. But the worst part is that there are about 100,000 children. It's hard to collect data, but that's what they think is happening. About 100,000 children are impacted every year. And there's an overrepresentation of children of color, children in poverty, and children with disabilities.
Oh, yes.
Absolutely.
And so,
Yes, that issue always rears its ugly head when we're talking about dealing with children and inequities, and there's one for sure.
Yeah, so
Excellent point.
You've got the inequities in there, too, as well.
Okay. Well, hey, Matt.
Right on cue.
I love it. It comes at the right time in the show.
Every time.
It's so valuable.
Right
Let's
time,
pick it up and
time.
see who we got here. Hello, caller.
Well, hello.
Well, thank you for calling in. I'm glad you're enjoying our show. Can you tell us your name, please?
Yeah, my name is Rebecca Doring.
Oh,
That name sounds familiar.
I feel like we had a guest
Yes.
named Rebecca
I
Doring.
believe we did too.
That sounds
Might be doing
strange.
double duty.
Do we have a really small audience out there? Our guests are our audience and things like
Maybe
that.
it's just a small world.
Or maybe, right, maybe there's another Rebecca Doring in the United States somewhere.
It's a holiday miracle.
It's a holiday miracle. Of course, this probably is way after the holidays, but enjoy the show. Okay, so thanks for calling in. We have Dr. Tara Ebersole here with us. Do you have a question for her?
Yeah, so I had noticed earlier this year that you had advocated for legislation banning corporal punishment in Maryland schools. And to be honest, I was under the impression that was already banned everywhere. So could you just elaborate a little bit on why you felt it was necessary for legislation to be passed, but how that was legal still, and kind of the whole process of passing a law about that?
As ever, Becca Doring, with so many of our guests, your ability to come straight to the point on an important part of this, our callers are just
Highest IQ callers.
They are
and listeners.
Perceptive.
Yes.
My God. Thank you for calling in. We really appreciate it.
Thanks. I look forward to hearing the answer.
Sure.
All right.
While I was doing research for the book, I discovered that corporal punishment was banned in Maryland for public schools in 1993, but it was not ever banned in private schools. And as I continued to do research, I got some anecdotal evidence that it was still happening. Now, that doesn't mean all private schools. I happen to know that the Catholic schools had also banned it. But the reality of it is that that bill was passed in 1993. That was 30 years ago. So there are very few people currently in the legislature who would even remember that it was only public schools. So I told my husband, who just happens to be on the General
I said,
Assembly.
you married the right guy on this one. Finally.
And he said, "You got to be kidding me." And he went and did some research on his own, and it turned out that was accurate. Maryland had not yet banned it across the board. So he had a bill drawn up. Thank you very much, sir, kind sir. And then he had me come and testify to the House subcommittee and to the Senate subcommittee. It passed very easily. It's really not a partisan bill. There was a bill that was brought forth at the Oklahoma legislature this year, and it was brought forth by a Republican. My husband happens to be a Democrat, but it doesn't matter because it really crosses over. And so I would say it wasn't quite unanimous, but it was very close to being unanimously passed. And then the governor signed it into law in July.
And so we really have maybe protected some other students. And, the question is, does it still go on even though the law says it? But I believe that by people knowing that there is a law that says no, as Tara said, she had some anecdotal evidence that might prevent someone from doing it in an informal way.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so hopefully what we say is every school has to have a policy where their faculty knows against corporal punishment.
Dynamic duo.
They can't be certified.
Making sure kids are safe. And
One of us is smart and one of us knows how to dig the trench.
There you go. Well, I'm gonna ask the next question just because I wanted to highlight a little bit. About what is the biggest misconception people have about the effectiveness of corporal punishment. I'm from, I grew up in both Pennsylvania and North Carolina, but then majority of my life growing up was in, rural Pennsylvania, Pennsyltucky, as is commonly referred to. And I know there are some former friends that would be like, what the problem with school today is? They just need to, spank those kids more. So, just what would you say to that attitude?
So there. First of all, it's very difficult if it's entrenched in someone's mind. You can't just take that away, particularly if you don't have any kind of discipline to replace it with. I would say my first response to that is that the studies show that the only thing hitting a child teaches them is that it's okay to hit a child. So chances are they feel that way because they were hit.
Yeah.
And they feel as though, well, I came out great and it's because I was hit rather than despite the fact that I was hit. I think that's part of it. But I think on top of that, because it is sort of so insidious and so much a part of our culture, people don't realize it's a form of abuse.
Yeah.
The very definition of abuse is cruel and violent treatment of a person or an animal, but it has been normalized. The reality of it is if we were to use a 2-foot-long wooden board to hit an adult, it would constitute assault.
Yeah.
And it's even illegal to use a 2-foot wooden board to hit a pet. And yet it's okay for us to hit a child. And so I just think it's become really normalized. And I think the biggest misconception is that people don't realize that it's a form of
And you
abuse.
said something right there that was just, I think, really brilliant, where you started to get to the cycles and the generations,
Yes.
that those cycles of violence and trauma that occur over and over again. And I want to highlight that.
Yes, I think that we get our parental blueprint from our own parents. We get our teaching blueprint from our past teachers. That's who we learn from. So if we tell someone you shouldn't be using corporal punishment, one of the things that might block that is, well, Are you telling me that what my teacher did was wrong? Are you telling me that what my parent did was wrong?
Yeah.
So it becomes entrenched in our society. And you're right, it is part of intergenerational trauma that we continue to hit children.
You know, I really expected your answer to this question to be that the research shows that it's ineffective, which is true.
Yes.
But you went a different direction. And Matt, so did you. The generational thing, you guys have really drilled down to a much deeper and more rooted error in corporal punishment. And I really appreciate what you both came up with there. So that was really great. Thank you.
Let's do the fun one. You do the fun one.
The fun one. Okay.
We hit a very somber note. Let's
Right.
end on a very
So you have the
positive.
magic wand and you can touch a school that you have gone to, and suddenly the mascot of that school will no longer be the mascot it was before. That mascot never seemed right, and you would like to give it a new mascot. It could be a school you went to or a school that you taught at, doesn't matter.
So I went to Towson High School. We were the Towson Generals. And to be quite honest with you, I found the mascot to be somewhat regal. We had maroon and white was our colors, and I thought the uniforms were gorgeous. But I am a fan of alliteration, and when I went to the university, it was the Towson Tigers. So I wanted to come up with a mascot name that would begin with a T, and I went through a lot of animals, and there was like trout.
And the ticks.
And ticks and tarantula.
Tarantulas
would be
would be
interesting.
pretty
I
bad.
like Towson High tarantulas.
What about the turtles? You know,
Yeah,
but
with Maryland, yeah.
I landed on the terriers.
The terriers.
Towson
Towson
Terriers. Why did you land on the
Terriers.
Terriers?
I just thought it was a great name. I thought it had some. I thought that I could imagine, the dog and the appearance, the logo.
Yeah.
would be really
You could have a
good.
live
And
mascot there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think it would be really fun. In
you know.
general, I mean, you don't have anything.
Yeah, we lean into the canines because Matt and I wanted them to be the reservoir
Reservoir
dogs,
dogs.
right? Exactly.
Yeah.
So
I
we
love
lean
the
into
Terriers.
canines.
I think it's a great
Terriers,
idea. You hear that?
yes.
Towson High?
Towson Terriers.
Towson Terriers.
Very good name. Well, listen, it's been great having you on.
Thank you.
And your insights are great. And thank you for highlighting the work and actually, I think, helping to protect some Maryland children.
Yes, exactly. And that's what I wanted to say, too, is you are protecting kids you've never met, which is beautiful. And thank you for your work, and thank you for always welcoming me as well into your home and being a friend.
So this is Brick and Mortar, and we'll be back in 2 weeks with, we've completed 5 shows, so the next one will be a 5 for 15, where we'll review the last 5 shows. So we're looking forward to spend a little more time in your radio.
Yeah. Take care.
Cheers.